Welcome back, my loves, to another episode of The Journey. Now, you might have seen our guest for today on ESPN, at NBA League events, at NBA games, at WNBA League events or games. You might have seen her on your TikTok For You page, or most recently, you might have seen her on her own podcast, Off the Record, where she interviewed Hall of Famer Shaquille O'Neal. Our guest for today is Lachelle Smith. She is an amazing multimedia journalist and content creator. She knows what she's talking about and does it with a very confident voice. Today, I am excited to share that she is discussing the intersectionality that comes with being a Black woman in the newsroom. Now, today is a much more interview style discussion, and that's just because that was the original purpose of my conversation with her. I was interviewing her for a final project I had to do, but I loved the gems that she was dropping, the information that she was sharing, and thought it would be great to repurpose as an episode for today. So without further ado, let's get into it. First, like you've had a lot of experiences in different types of newsrooms. What would you say has been your experience being a woman in the newsroom?
I guess it's hard for me to always answer it as just the woman part because it's like I'm a Black woman, And
Yeah.
if you ask me, I think there is a difference. As much as people may want to ignore that, there is a difference between being just a woman in a newsroom and a Black woman in a newsroom. I guess for me, I'm not given the luxury of splitting it down the middle. It's always going to be coupled together.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, like in internships and stuff, it was a little different. Not bad, not like someone was saying derogatory terms to me or racial slurs, nothing of that. But you can always tell, like, there's always this undertone of like, what are you really doing here? Do you really know like anything? And I think it's interesting because I never felt uncomfortable, but you just never always feel welcome either. You always feel like you kind of have to do a little bit more just so people are like, oh, she's of value. I think that's like the biggest like theme. I feel like most women in the newsroom kind of like, do I have value? Am I adding value? Or am I working hard enough to be considered just an employee or a member of the newsroom and not a woman of the newsroom? Because then that's a different connotation.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like, it, like I said, it wasn't always welcome, but it wasn't necessarily uncomfortable. But you always like, I was always thinking of like my hair or like what I was gonna wear. And like, you just like kind of live in this fear that someone's gonna be like, hey, you can't do that. Like, you can't wear that, or hey, you need to have one hairstyle. I had a professor who did that when I was in undergrad. He was like, whatever your hairstyle is at the beginning of the semester, you have to keep it that way. And it was the most craziest thing I had ever heard, because I was like, you can't dictate how people do their hair. Like,
What?
and it took me so long to remember it. Like, at first I was like, am I making this up? And then I remember hitting up one of my friends who was in the class with me, and he was like, no, he said that. And I was like, okay, I thought I was like repressing this and I was making it up, but he was like, no, he said that. And I remember like being young and just being like, you start to like justify it. You're like, oh, that's the newsroom, the professors ready. Like, I need to have one thing. And then you get older and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, you have no right to tell me for a whole, 5 months, I cannot do anything different to my hair, however I come in. But like, that's also like the tone in the newsrooms that I used to be around, very traditional, like, don't bring too much attention to yourself. So like, I guess you learn what you're supposed to learn in it. But I guess the confidence in the newsroom as a woman can be very fleeting. It can't always be as strong just because there's this expectation of what you're supposed to look like and how you do it. And again, being a Black woman versus just being a woman is like two different things. So I guess like it's not a bad experience that I had, but as an intern, like it was the traditional newsroom. So local news everywhere. It was different for sure. Not horrible, always grateful for the opportunity, but yeah, it was some days I would just call my mom and be like, I don't really know if I like this very much.
Wow. So did you feel like that you had to like how to say this conform in those settings, or like how did you deal with the those just that feeling?
Yeah, I definitely felt like I had to conform. I think too, when you're so young in it and you hear everyone sit there and tell you, like, I think terms that are used in the newsroom a lot for Black women or women in general is like, you got to pay your dues. Oh, I went through that. It's fine. It's very much, I wouldn't want to say gaslighting, but it's like almost justifying wrongdoing because it's been done for this long and you're new and you're young. So, like, you can't come change this. And I think for me, because I had this fear of like, I don't want this to be something that follows me. Like, if I mess up here in Lafayette, Louisiana, will it follow me to wherever I go next? Will it follow me to Los Angeles? Will it follow me later on in my career where it's like they take this one moment and I never could get it back? And I think there was the conformity came from the fear of like, okay, I'm just going to do what needs to be done, not say much about it, just go at it. And I think it's such a dangerous place to be at, because then when you get more into the career and get more reps and experiences, you start to realize like that's not a way to do a job. That's not a way to live a life, to just be in fear like that all the time. And I think early on, because you just want the reps and you want the opportunity and you never want to seem like you're causing trouble or bringing attention, you just kind of are like, okay, fine. So I definitely conformed to it. I just was like, let me just do what I need to do. There will come a time when I can do what I want, wear whatever hair I want, whatever the case may be. And I think, again, that's a dangerous way to think, but it's like, okay, do I really have time to fight this war right now when I have like no army? Like, I'm young, I'm still trying to build this thing. Like, let me just do what I need to do. So I definitely conform for sure. For sure. Now looking back on it, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a hard one though. That it really is. So working where you are now with the Players Tribune, like I see that you guys do stories on more of a diverse, I would say, more diverse stories, more diverse subjects. So does that kind of fuel like the environment of the newsroom that you're in? As far as, do you feel more comfortable there? Like, have your challenges shifted with that? What does it look like right now?
I always tell people that I think the biggest blessing that I could have got out of college was getting to the Players Tribune. I
Okay.
think for a lot of people going into sports journalism, especially for women, it's like a hit or a miss. On
Hmm.
one flip end, people are telling you like you got to go to Timbuktu to get reps. And I think for me, I didn't want to do that. I didn't necessarily want to be in the traditional newsroom of like, getting in the car, being a one-man band. The Players Tribune truly was like a blessing in its own, because like I had the fellowship, then it turned into a full-time opportunity. But from the minute of the fellowship, it felt like open arms. Whatever you want to do, however you see it. I think one of the best lessons I learned at TPT and still learning is like, if this is your idea, it's your job to keep it alive. Like, I may not agree with you, but like, fight back if you need to. So when we used to write articles early on, I had this editor who, me and him are still super close, but he used to say notes in the editorial article, like, let's change this. And then one time we had a talk and he was like, you could refute back to what I'm saying in here. Like, don't think it's yours. Like, you wrote it, you
Oh,
interviewed, you know what the tone is. So these are suggestions. Don't think that, hey, it's ironclad, this is it. He was like, have the dialogue with me, like, see where I'm coming, but let me see where you're coming from. And if you believe it should stay, fight for that. And he used to always say, just trust yourself, trust your ideas, trust what this is. And I think being so young in the career of it all, my first full-time job in a real, environment like that, they made it very quick to be like, do your thing. If you have this idea, pitch it, however it may be. So being in it now and seeing how diverse we are with the things that we do cover, it
yeah.
honestly is a blessing, and it brings a lot of confidence. I think my confidence has been built a lot at TPT, even to do more things outside of it. But in it, it's like, this is yours. Like, you're here for a reason. And I think that's the best thing, when you could be somewhere and like people
Mhm.
are putting the confidence in you to do the thing that they believe you can. So I
Yeah.
think with TPT, it's like, it's never a doubt of like, oh, I can't do it. It's always like, oh, she could do it. It's just my job to make sure like I'm really pushing it.
Right.
So I feel always comfortable with TPT for sure. I think obviously no situation will be perfect. You'll find anything at any job to complain about or
Yeah.
nitpick. But I think me as a woman in the newsroom, I never have to second guess like, are they undermining what I'm saying? Are they brushing off this idea because I'm a woman? Sometimes people just brush off ideas because they don't understand it. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily because I'm a woman. They're just like, oh, I don't really understand it. I would
Yeah.
rather that than the fact that you're brushing me off because I'm a woman. So
Yeah. Yeah. I see that.
yeah, it's like such a difference. So I think
Yeah.
at TPT, I've never felt that like, oh, they're brushing this idea off because I'm a Black woman. It's always like, oh, they might be brushing it off because like they just don't know much about what I just pitched. So
Right.
I'm blessed to be a TPT. They opened this level of confidence and just creativity that I think everyone craves when you're in it. And I think
Yeah.
being able to have it so early on in my career has definitely just helped a lot. And
Yeah.
it really is like, I guess being in that atmosphere, you don't think that it exists until you're in it. And then you hear
Right.
other people's stories, and then you're like, man, I got it kind of good then. Like this could be all right. So it's
Yeah.
a blessing for sure.
I love that. Oh my gosh. So is it a like is it a diverse newsroom? Are the people that you're working with diverse as well, or is it just everybody's just really supportive?
I don't have like the percentages of our diversity, but I would assume it's not a lot of black women. I guess if
Okay.
want me to say that too, because that it's more women in general. I do feel like we have a lot of women. I will say that. I think we definitely have a lot of women across the board. I
Okay.
don't think a lot of women of color necessarily.
Okay.
I don't think we're the majority, but I do think the women at TPT, I think they kind of got a good numerical value. I haven't seen the numbers, but from what I've seen, like there's definitely always a woman in a meeting or whatever the case may be. I
Mhm.
guess again, it is confidence. Like a lot of
Mhm.
the pitches in the, that you'll do is with more of a male type of situation. But like for me and my team with the social team, we're all women. It's an all woman team. There's no male in that social team. So
Wow.
that, like that's a little different. You go to the video team, there's a good number of them as well.
Okay.
I think for like the editorial team, there might be one. I was the other one. So like
Okay.
it's different across the board, but I guess like it is, I guess you could say that does help because you're having to deal with women most likely all the time in these meetings. So I
Yeah.
think they've learned even more probably the comfortability and how to interact and do those things. So then when I get there, it's like, oh, well, we already know like it's just strictly what you do. It's not about that you're a woman, like, do your thing, have the confidence. So I guess one day I should actually look up those numbers, but
Okay.
I definitely think there's a good number of women there for sure.
Okay, yeah, I love that. Gosh. Okay, so then going on to you just talked about socials. When it comes to like social media and you have a big TikTok following, use Instagram a lot when it comes to posting about sports. But what about posting about like do you feel comfortable in using your voice for maybe like racial injustices, like different heavier topics? Do you
Mm.
feel comfortable in your position to use your voice, and do you feel like your newsroom environment would support you in that?
Yeah, I think since I started in journalism, I think I've never been afraid of talking more other than sports when it comes to just racial injustices and things like that. I
Okay.
think I think I live in this realm that no one owns my voice. I
Mm,
and maybe that's harsh for some people to hear, but I don't think anyone owns that other than God because he gave it to me. So
mhm,
like I don't try to live in this thing of like, oh, I can't say this because of this. I think now, I guess because it's a different situation, I don't think my newsroom wants to stop us from speaking of things,
mhm,
but I guess there can be a line, I guess, because you also are representing them and you're also trying to talk about the injustices that you're seeing. And I
mhm,
guess it's hard for so many reasons. I guess I could give you a good example and you could use it or not, because I think I'm still trying to figure it out too.
mhm,
You see everything that's happening with like Israel and Palestine and Gaza. And like for me, I would love to speak more about it, but I also have to learn more about it.
mhm.
And I also know like right is right and wrong is wrong.
Yeah,
Like overtaking these people and cutting off the airport access, everything. That's just evil. That's not good.
yeah,
On the flip end, because I'm still learning about it, I'm not well versed in all of the history of the fight that they're in. And
right.
because I do know it's wrong and I would love to speak on it, there's like this other side of like my company, in a
Mhm,
sense, Minute Media,
mhm.
Israel based company.
Oh,
And it puts me at a crossroads. So, for instance, I haven't said anything like I kind of want to on
yeah,
my platform. And
yeah,
I know some people will say, well, you have this like this obligation when you have a platform. And I do agree with that. On the other end, it's also like most of the time when you're saying that to people, they're like millionaires and like they
yeah,
could be without a job for a minute and then be fine. I'm
yeah,
not necessarily given that luxury. And I'm not saying that the money is more important than the injustice. Absolutely not. but it puts you at a little bit of a tizzy right there where it's like, I would love to speak out about this and condemn what Israel is doing. But also it's like the people who sign my checks are Israel-based company based in,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Interesting.
you don't want to burn bridges. You never
Yeah.
want to do that. And then it's like, you have to start looking at yourself and say like, man, like, what do you want to stand for? So I think for me, when it comes to all of that, I've never been afraid of it, but I think the older I've gotten and you get into other things and you're like, oh man, like I do have to think about it. I
Yeah.
think for me, I'm still trying to figure out the best way to support the fight for, for Palestine and everything, because on the flip end, it's like, say my boss comes back and is like, hey, you're kind of going against the company now because you said this. And, those are things you just don't want to get into a fight about. But I think at the end of the day, when it comes to social media and the platform, you do have this obligation to speak of the things that you're seeing. And I think sometimes you have to give yourself grace to figure out how to say it. I don't believe just because you have a platform, you should always speak so quick. That's dangerous if you don't know everything of what you're saying. I do believe in sincerity and genuine posting. I do believe with social media, sometimes you could be bullied into supporting something that really you don't know what you're really supporting. And I think when you have a platform, it's like, I need to say something. I need to say something. But I believe in like taking a moment, really praying about the thing that you're supposed to say, and also seeing the best way to say it. Because now you see everyone saying things and you're just like, I don't even know if you really believe this. I think you're just saying it because you're scared of being canceled or someone coming in your comments and saying, why haven't you said anything yet? And da 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 da. So I think for me, it's like my newsroom doesn't stop it. But I think in the back of my mind, I'm always like, okay, will this make a conversation later? Even though I know what's right and wrong and wrong, that necessarily doesn't mean that they do corporately. So I think TPT, of course, hasn't been like, y'all can't say anything. Like they've never said that. I think it's kind of this weird thing everyone's kind of like walking with right now. Cause I think a lot of people want to say something, but you're just trying to find the right way to say it. But it's never been a conversation, I guess, with any racial issue, like, don't say anything, this reflects us. I think it's like, hey, you have your voice, you have your platform, choose to do what you choose. But if something does, come and we need to talk about it, just be ready for a conversation per se. So I guess there's no fear in it, but I guess there's some caution as an individual, just like, how is this going to work? But I guess for me, I'm still trying to figure that out. I think before I wasn't tied to a corporation, I could really say whatever. And I think there's freedom in that. And then you get to a corporation and you're like, okay, like I got to kind of think about this. So I definitely think about it more, but not afraid to do it. It's just more of a thought.
Okay. Has there been any I want to say like headline specifically, it doesn't have to be like the specific conflict, but any event where the newsroom or your corporation has come together, maybe anything that they've pushed or anything like that where it's kind of a unified voice?
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, this was before I got there. I think almost a year before I got there, or a few months during, I want to say, George Floyd. I think a conversation was had of what can we do. And I think the leaders of that conversation were the Black people and the people of color who were there. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they pushed for something to be done, which resulted in them making like a series of like amplifying Black voices. So all the pictures were black and white. They spoke with people throughout sports that have shown that they have such an inclination to talk about social injustice and really to talk about what was going on. If I'm not mistaken, that's something that they did. I think now, because it just seems like things still keep happening, I think now they found a footing where they still try to do it. I think we could do more though. I think that's something. I think when catastrophic things like a George Floyd happens, I think everyone's first, reflex is like, let's be in support, this is injustice. Like we need to fight this fight. And then, years go on, months go on, and the effort isn't as, of a priority. So I think, before I got there, they did that. I think even the year of the fellowship, they did something again. And then I think, everything happened during the bubble when they took the knee and like, all of that happened. So I think there was another effort of being in the conversation of having those portraits and having those pieces from people around sports that wanted to talk about it. I think we could do more though. I think everyone probably has that sense all the time that you could do more because you can't fight injustice in one day. It's a lifelong fight in a sense. So I think they've had good efforts. I think we've tried to up it, but I think obviously there's still way more that we could do to really affect change.
Yeah, that makes sense. So going back to your individual voice, so when we have other Black women in sports journalism, and kind of like they also have, you know, huge followings, things like that. So when they use their personal platform, specifically, I'm thinking about like Jamel Hill and Sage Steele. Are you aware of like certain controversies surrounding what they've said?
Yeah, it's funny because I think they're both on like opposite spectrums, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, they're both saying very controversial things, but there's also like such a different spectrum. And I,
Yeah.
you know, I get it because it's you have freedom of speech, right? Like no one owns your voice in the actual sense of it.
Yeah.
But then I guess as a young journalist, you see these things and you're like, is this really playing out the way that I would want to be in it? Like you have to start putting yourself in there, right? Like if this was me, would I be okay with whatever happens?
Yeah.
And I think the same can be said for both of them, and they're definitely opposite spectrums. I
Yeah.
think both of them have had to say, like, am I okay with what happens? I think for me, I grew up liking and loving Jamel Hill because she was so opinionated. And then
Mhm.
you get older and you're like, man, they really did this to her because of her voice.
Mhm.
Then you grow up and you see Sage Still and you're like, okay, this is like the opposite. It,
Yeah.
but in your mind, you're like, if I'm supporting Jamil, I kind of gotta allow you to get your stuff off too, like in a
Yeah.
sense. Like
Depends on what she says. She's just
it's like you sit there looking at Sage like I don't agree with this, but like if I'm sitting here letting Jamil pop hers, I kind of gotta let you pop yours too. Like if I don't like it, but I think like obviously I think there's always going to be a way to go about things and
yeah.
the humanity of it all and how you think of other people and how you say things. I
Yeah.
think intention is really important. I think you can speak on injustices and be passionate about it and it not come off the way that maybe some people would take it as like an attack.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think because people have such strong voices, even Jamel Hill, I think the reason it caused the uproar because they felt like it was an attack. To me though, I guess because I was a fan and still am a fan and listening to her now and she hasn't stopped talking about it, that's truly what it was though. But it was like not an attack on people, but it's like it's no way y'all are seeing this and allowing it to be okay. Like
Yeah.
I can't do my job and think that this is okay. Like I have an obligation. With that came a choice, those came consequences, and you have to be able to live with that. And I guess as a journalist, as a young Black journalist, as a woman, you got to ask yourself too, like, if I was in that situation, would I have been able to do that? Would I have stuck to my guns and kept my opinion and lost my job essentially like she did, or would I have conformed out of fear and felt like I'm not going to do that? So I guess it's a way. Bomani Jones spoke about this. Him and Jamel Hill had a podcast, and Jamel asked him candidly. She was like, "How like the heck have you never been fired?" She was like, "You say as much as I used to say, or even more." And he really was like, I kind of know where I could go and where I can't. Basically, like I know my limits. Like
Mhm.
I could say a lot of things, but I also know my limits of how this person might receive it here or this person. And it was like an honest, genuine question that she asked that was so good because he says a lot of things too about politics and race.
Yeah.
And she really was like, I don't understand how you're still here. Like they got me
Yeah.
out with the quickness and you're still doing it. And him saying that I think opened my eyes of like, you can still say what you say, but there does have to be a sense of, all right, I might push too much with this one. I might just got to say it a different way or at another time, but
Yeah.
there might be this limit.
Yeah.
So I think for a lot of people, you hear that and you think like, oh, they're trying to silence you. But I think it's just like there's some thought to your, I guess, approach of how
Yeah.
the message doesn't have to change, but the approach might have to be different.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good point. I got to look into that. I got to check that one out.
It was really good. Like, and she literally was like baffled. She was like, I don't get it. Like, how
Yeah.
are you? And now he's not with ESPN, but that was because of contracts and stuff. But like,
Yeah.
he real life just was like laughing. He was like, I just know when to stop. Like,
Do you think when they go through or the backlash that they receive, does it affect how other Black women are perceived in the newsroom?
100%. I think it affects like young journalists. It affects me. It would affect you. It would affect any of us in it. And I guess that's the sad part, because like you shouldn't be grouped in with maybe what someone else does. But I think the biggest thing in this world that we've witnessed when it comes to especially Black women or Black people in general is like, you know, that's what they do. They group us in. You've always heard the saying, like, you know, leave something better than when you got there and things like that. But the same thing is also said, like, when someone does something, or say you're in school, like a good example is like 1 year in high school, we wanted to do a class prank. But like 2 years before, the class did this crazy prank that shut down the whole school. And it's like, now y'all can't do it. The same, you know, mindset can be said to them. Like, you say these statements and you're rightfully able to do that and should be able to. Yeah. But I don't know if we're in your mind in the back of it of how does this affect the next Black journalist that tries to get in this space and maybe wants to talk about this, but now she can't, or she's looked at differently. I think it 100% affects us, because then I think even subconsciously for us, we're already walking on eggshells because of that.
Exactly.
It's like tough, because then you're walking in the newsroom and in your mind, you're already thinking to yourself, they're already thinking that I'm going to agree with this or think this, or this is me. They're grouping me in. They're not looking at this headline and this individual and saying, well, this is one individual. She happens to be Black and a woman. She's saying this is her own. No, they're saying that's a Black woman who said a lot. You're a Black woman and you might be able to say a lot too. So y'all are the same thing to me. So now I have to treat you how I technically would have treated this person that I might never meet in my life. But because I see this opinion and you're right in front of me and I'm going to see you, I'm going to think the same thing. And I think it gives us, I hate to say it sets us back. I don't know if it sets back is the right frame of it, but it gives another sense of caution. Like, it's like, oh man, when I walk into space, are they immediately already thinking I'm Jamil Hill? Are they immediately thinking I'm Sage Steele? Are they immediately thinking that I'm like this and they don't even know me? So I think it's unfair in a lot of ways, but I guess that's a conversation that I think the pioneers of journalism when it comes to Black women kind of have to get together and start talking about, because, you know, love them. We like, without them, there's no us. But then it's like, some of you have opened a lot of doors for us that are positive, but then there's like this other conversation of like, some of this is a little difficult because they're comparing me to you and the bad things, not the good things, but the things that they perceive as bad. So I think it's a hard thing for us, because I think it makes us not want to say a lot, not speak up about certain things, and try to just play it how we can. So it's just, I think it affects us for sure though. Like, it just, I wish it wasn't like that, but I think people can't see separate. They just see groups.
Well, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Lachelle, for your time and insight. I hope you guys enjoyed and got something from this. As always, with a lot of love. See you guys next time. 'Cause I don't want the simple life. It's the fine things I